Hello and welcome back to Mirror's Signal podcast, your weekly podcast sponsored by Knowledgeably Instructor Training, award-winning CPD providers. Stay tuned to the episode for your discount code from them. Today's episode, we are joined by Sean O'Neill for the second time. Now, in Sean's first episode, he spoke about the qualifying process and how he got through that. This episode, he joins us to talk about his standards check and how he managed with that. Now, his first standards check didn't go to plan, but he passed his second standards check with a grade A. And this happened within 12 months of qualifying as an ADI. So we talk about the changes that he made from his first standards check to his second standards check, some of the development that went through and the people that helped him in his standards check and the training that he'd done. Towards the end of the episode, Sean also asked me a few questions about the preparation for my standards check and some of the thoughts that I had. So some good insights into the standards check and just developing as a driving instructor. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button or the follow button wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. You can also find me on Facebook, either in the Facebook group or on the Facebook page, and they're both available at Mirror's Signal Podcast. For now, we will get on with the episode. I hope you all enjoy. Sean, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah. Guess who's back?
Ah, I am looking forward to this one. It was January 2024 when our first episode went out, and you'd not long passed your part three at that point. Is that right?
That's right. I was the November that I passed my part three, and then like the January you said after that. So yeah,
How's life been as an ADI since then?
it's been good, mate. Yeah, busy. I've definitely enjoyed it. Got a nice shiny new car, all that kind of stuff. With my franchise, and yeah, it's been really good. I've enjoyed it, enjoying just diving into the job and um yeah, helping people achieve their goals once I achieved mine.
Now you've been doing the job for a year. I mean, there's a specific thing we want to talk about on the episode, but we will get to that. I'll keep the listeners waiting. But we're
Well, in
talking about
suspense.
some standards checks, plural, but we'll get to that later. So, since qualifying, is it what you expected it to be as an ADI?
I think so. That's a good question. I think so, because you get a really good insight as to what to expect when you're a PDI. And I know when you are a PDI, you've got the part three looming over you the entire time, and if you're anything like me, you lost sleep over it and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to be able to do the job without that hanging over the top of you, and to be able to just okay, right, who have we got today? How are we going to help them? And at the end of the day, that's, have I helped this? Did this person get better at driving today? Yes or no? Great, good day. Let's line up for tomorrow. So yeah, definitely enjoying it on that front, and like I say, liked being able to just essentially get my head down and do my job. That was the way I was kind of looking at it once I passed my part three. Take on more pupils, earn more money, all the rest of it. Yeah. So yeah, it's good.
Did you feel there was a difference in the lessons building up to your part three, where you've got this kind of hanging over your head, and then once you've passed and you're working as an ADI, you've no longer got that, I guess, concern of a part three, and you maybe moved from a developing instructor to a qualified instructor. Were the lessons different? Did you notice a difference?
I would like to say no to that. There wasn't a difference, because I definitely had a moment when I was a PDI of, okay, I need to start doing every lesson like it's going to be my part three. And then I remember having that moment of, well, that's what it should be like anyway. So yeah, I would like to say no to that. However, upon reflection, there probably was some kind of differences. I think I did get into some bad habits of, he's missed a couple of mirror checks there, make sure he doesn't do it again, and maybe didn't dive into that as much as I should have, or in as much detail as I should have. Um, but I think the yeah, in theory, we weren't ever aiming to do anything different from the pink badge to the green badge. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The outcome's still the same, isn't it? We want to deliver a good driving lesson.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming from what you said, you maybe just felt a little more relaxed
yeah,
in the lessons. And it's almost now you're not thinking in the back of your head, is this right for a part three? There's maybe is this right for the pupil? Am
yeah,
I helping that pupil?
yeah, yeah. You definitely put that better than I could. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Definitely probably a more relaxed environment to be in, both for me and the people. It'd be interesting to ask some pupils if they noticed that. Worthwhile thinking.
It's something that came up when obviously I'm doing my reflective logs at the moment for my standards check. And someone did ask, it was Alex that asked, have you spoke to your pupils? Have they noticed a difference in your lessons? And I'll be honest, I haven't asked them because, I don't know whether it's fear of the answer or
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
I don't know. Um, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because we have an image of how we think a lesson's going, but everyone's perception of a situation is different. And what's the pupil seeing? What are they getting out of it? And I often think as well, if we ask pupils, they're probably not going to be honest if they don't feel it's a good lesson or
Yeah,
they've not really noticed a difference. There's probably an element of they just going to say what we want to hear to a certain extent anyway.
yeah. I say to all my learners, like, don't, it's a safe space. You can, if you don't like something I'm doing or saying, or if you don't understand what I'm doing or saying, like, don't be scared to call me on that. It keeps me on my toes, if nothing else. And the ones that do are the ones that I look forward to almost. You know what I mean? Not that I don't look forward to all of them because I love my job, but definitely, like, oh yeah, I've got. Oh, I'll name drop. I had a girl who's passed now. She's called Lucy, and I would say, right, okay, we're going to do this, and I would start explaining to her, and she would just go, I have no idea what you're talking about, Sean. And I'm like, okay, let me think of a different way to try and help you understand this. Um, and yeah, she was great on that front. She was she would sit there, no idea, try again. And I mean, I like to think that I've helped create an environment where she's comfortable enough to do that. And if I think she would give me an honest kind of answer if I was to give her some sort of survey or something to do, whether it was good or bad or could be better.
Maybe that's what I need to do, an anonymous survey so I can send it out to everyone.
I've often
And
thought of doing that. I actually think it was. I
yeah,
think there's. I'm sure it was Terry from the instructor podcast. He did, or he suggested something similar. And I've not been brave enough to do it yet, but I think it's definitely get valuable feedback and honest feedback because that's what you want.
yeah, I like the idea of it. We will leave that over at the instructor podcast with Terry. Go and find him and find out what he's up to. But make sure you listen to this episode first. But yeah, that would be definitely interesting and some food for thought there to get some honest feedback. We've wavered massively already, haven't
Already,
we?
yeah.
This is going to be fun. So I'm going to bring it back on point. So you're an ADI, you've been working for 12 months, kind of finding your feet, building, expanding your business. And then you get a call for a standards check. When was that?
Good question. When was I? Because I was on holiday when the email came through, and I was raging to be quite honest. Um, Let me think. I was probably so the first one. Not shy to tell everybody, it took me 2 attempts, so the first one was a fail. And the first one, the letter came through maybe the August, end of July, August, something like that. And then the date that I got was in October.
So within a year of
Within a
qualifying,
year. Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
I passed in the November 2023, first standards check, October 2024. So 11 months. Um, and that first email that came through, I remember thinking, no, I've just done this. Like why am I getting pulled in? And I had that little moment of panic, and I think I probably went through all 5 phases. Depression, bargaining, went through all that, and then eventually the way and this is the way I'm going to think about all of them, because I'm going to have more in my career. As part of the job, we all have parts of jobs that we don't like. This just happens to be one of them. And yeah, yeah, I'll never forget that. I was standing in the kitchen, and just went, and then uttered some expletives, which I'll no repeat. So yeah.
So you got your standards check. What next?
So I remember thinking, right, okay, we need a plan, and I think I said something like 4 to 6 weeks in the lead up to it. I'll really get my head down, come home from the holiday, and yeah, and really do that. And I got complacent. That was the first thing. Oh, I've been doing this for a year. Surely I'm a better ADI now than I was when I passed my part three. Was part of my thought, and I'd still like to kind of think that's a little bit true, because I very nearly passed. That's maybe one way to put it. But yeah, I got complacent, and there was times. So at the time, I was working 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Putting quite a bit of hours in. I'm a grafter, quite happy to put the hours in. But I didn't really take a lot of time to reflect. I didn't take a lot of time to even listen to podcasts and things. Like I've usually got the instructor podcast on in the car, and I wasn't doing that as much. And again, I just don't think I was really putting the effort in as the be all end all, really. Thinking that my experience from the previous year was going to carry me through. And did you want me to just go straight into how it went on the day and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
You're on a
Let's
roll.
dive in. So on the day, we went to the test center. We were going to be working on, I think it was position or lane, or what lane to go in. I forget exactly what it was, but it was something to do with lanes on roundabouts. And we goes in to the test center, and we have in Dundee a new ADI enforcement manageress, whatever way you want to put it. And she was brand spanking new at the job. So on my first standards check, she had her boss with her as well. So there was 4 of us in the car. And I was very conscious of that. And I remember thinking at one stage, I thought I don't remember thinking much about the examiner when I passed my part three. I was very much just, let's focus here, and he was right behind me, and the lady doing the examiner, she was behind the pupil, so I could see her and like in my peripheral vision, but I couldn't see him, and I could see him in my mirror, and I had to move my chair forward a little bit for him, so now I felt a little bit more uncomfortable, and I'm not. That's not the reason I didn't pass. Like that would be a cop out, but it definitely threw me. I wasn't expecting it. And the essential feedback that I got was that I I kept him at the same level too long. So he was getting what I was putting down. He was picking up. He was doing well with his lines, and I should have then upped the challenge on him, and I didn't. And I scored 28, and they were full of compliments. To be fair, there was it was a good environment in the car. You've got a good rapport with the pupil. It was nice and safe. Obviously, the risk management side of things, everything was fine on that regard. And I remember the examiner's boss saying, you're just right there. It's just unfortunately you didn't then make him take the next step. And that was essentially it. And after that, my confidence hit rock bottom. I felt awful. Felt like I was kind of letting my pupils down almost. And I knew I could do better. Uh, and yeah, that was essentially it, really. And then it was very much okay. Let's enjoy Christmas. Wait on the next letter coming through, and put changes in because obviously what I did in the run up to the last one didn't work. um, so um, yeah, I think that pretty much covers the first one. Yeah.
It's a good summary of what happened and maybe how it happened. What did you do? So you said you kind of hit a low point after that. First up, how did you get out of that? And then what was your next move? What do you do next?
So I mean, how did I get out of that? I don't know really. um, I remember I remember when because it took me 2 times to pass my part three as well. There's a little bit of a theme going here. Um, and I remember watching again. It was an instructor, or was it yours? There was an episode with Becky Seaton, and it was instructor podcast because it was top five things to do after a part three or standard checks fail. That's what it was. And one of the things she said, throw yourself a bit of a pity party. Feel your feelings. As cheesy as it all sounds, it sucks, but you can do better, and then essentially own it and get back on the horse and try again. So that was kind of I didn't shy away from the fact that I was pissed off at myself for lack of a better term. Um, and yeah, from there, I remember I do remember thinking, right, okay, we're gonna get through Christmas because it was in the kind of lead up to Christmas at this point, and then the action plan will come into place. And I'm sure it was on Christmas Eve. I got my standard check like the re-invite, and I thought, oh, great, DVLA, you can let me enjoy Christmas, great. um, but I wasn't really upset when I got this one through because I thought, right, great, now I know how long I've got, what I need to do, when I need to do it, and really let's do it. So yeah, so then at that point, the kind of action plan, after Christmas, let's let's dive in. Um, yeah, I'm still trying to kind of think how I kind of got like how I kind of built my confidence back up because, like I say, my confidence was at rock bottom at that point, and I remember thinking like, yeah, I've probably done this after I failed my first part three as well. Like, oh, maybe I can't do this. Maybe maybe I've been riding a luck streak and it's finished. And I think I remember kind of I was probably like I had a good few lessons where I was asking the right questions and things were going well and there were like you could really see the learning happening. And I thought, you know what, like yeah, let's aim to make it more like that than this. And yeah, and then like I say, plan kicked into place in January. I had so I right before Christmas I'd made that decision. Right, okay, I'm going to give myself a day to because I'm working 6 days a week at the moment and I'm burning out and not really having time to make sure I'm doing my job right, make sure I'm not burning myself out, and like the other kind of business side of things as well. So I chalked Mondays down to my working but not delivering lessons day. So I would do my CPD on a Monday. I would do my taxis and all the kind of boring filing receipts and all this kind of stuff. I would like I say, Monday was my day for me to do work related stuff, but not be in the car with the people. Um, and yeah, that made a big difference. I I did get quite bad actually. I'll just have one lesson in the morning. So yeah, I did get kind of bad for that to be fair. And I'm still having the Mondays off for that specific reason. And yeah, got people sitting in on my lessons, giving me feedback. their feedback was very similar to what the examiner was saying. Yeah, they're understanding what there is these are trying to do. What was next? Okay, and then that, once I kind of started progressing, I guess I wouldn't like to say I was holding people back, but I wasn't moving them forward fast enough. And once I kind of started recognizing when they were doing better, they probably started making progress quicker. Maybe that's the way to put it. Um, and then listened to all the podcasts, read loads of books in the lead up to it. I did Bob Morton's client-centered learning course online. Not the mentorship one, the one that's just with the videos and stuff online. That was really good. And yeah, just really just put more effort in. Really, I thought, right, well, I clearly got complacent the last time, um, so yeah, we're going to go nail it this time. And well, the second time I went much better.
How did your second standards check go?
So it went really well. So I passed with a grade A. Was absolutely buzzing at that. I got 44 of 51, and yeah, it was just a much better lesson. I progressed things well. I got a really really engaging learner. That made a big difference. Not that the first one wasn't engaging. That's not any slight on him in any way, shape, or form. But this one, she's a bit of a chatterbox, which is great. And yeah, so we were. Was it the session beforehand for my standards check? She was approaching junctions and things where she wasn't quite prepared to go if it was then safe. She would get up to the junction, she would stop the car regardless, and then check if it's safe, and then change the gear and then go. So we're kind of working on that, and that's I thought good. She's set me up really well for that because that could be okay. How are you going to prepare on the way in, stuff like that. I thought she set me up really well for that. And then I thought to myself, I thought she's going to get that in the first 10 minutes. That's not going to take her a whole 45 minutes to get this. So that's when I kind of thought, right, okay, we'll start including some of this commentary. So I spoke to her about this as well because I said, like this is your lesson. I'm focusing. Like, obviously, she knew there was a test. I told her all about it and stuff. And I said, but at the end of the day, it still has to be a normal lesson, and you still have to progress and get your money's worth and blah blah blah. And we spoke. I said, if things are going really well, I'm going to introduce this commentary aspect, and I don't want to introduce it on the day, so I'm going to tell you what it is just now and talk to you about it just now, and then we can pick it up on the day. And then she jumps in the car on the day, and then that's all she spoke about was the commentary side of things, and she thought. And she didn't even mention the fact that she wasn't prepared on approach to the junctions. And I thought, right, okay, let's really dive into this. And as part of the commentary, hopefully we'll fix that. Was my kind of thought. And it just went really well. Yeah, she was really engaging, chatting. I always start my commentary with, what can you see happening ahead of you? That's like level one, if you like. What can you see? Second level is, how are you going to deal with that? And then the third level is, why? Why are you doing that? Why is that beneficial? And we didn't get to the whys, we just ran out of time. But we got to the what we're going to do and how. And I was very conscious of the area I was going to be in as well, because I thought if I just do a loop half a dozen times, the what might change slightly each time, but that parked car's got to be there every time. We all know where that bus stop is after the second run, So then the third. So we kind of went round, stopped near the test centre, round again, stopped near the test centre. And then the third time I expanded the area, because then it was, now you're telling me how you're going to do it, but you're now also doing it in an area that we've not just done 2-3 times already. And I think that's probably why I scored well with the training area. And yeah, like I say, it went really well. It was only the one examiner in the car this time as well, so that probably put my mind at ease. And yeah, 44, and I was like, oh, jeez. She literally just turned the iPad around to tell me, and I was like, shit, it's got 44. So yeah, Great, went well, buzzing, and yeah, that girl's got her test coming up not next month, but then a month after. So yeah, well, big thanks to her because she was a great pupil on the day as well. And yeah, that was basically it.
Was there a difference that you could see in the two lessons? Now looking back on reflection, can you see the difference in the two along with kind of the relevant scores that you got in each
Yeah,
lesson?
yeah. Short answer is is yes. Definitely a difference. I think in the kind of the coaching and the kind of questioning techniques more than anything. And I think a lesson on commentary driving really opened me up to that, or opened the lesson up to that. It kind of sets itself up well to be able to not barrage them with questions because you don't want to overwhelm them, but yeah, like I say, it really promotes like good participation from the people more so than the first lesson did. Um, and then, like I say, I was very conscious of obviously what I failed the first one on, like not moving them on quick enough, and I obviously moved her on to a more challenging area, which was the right thing to do because we could have easily went around a third loop of the same area, and again, like I said, nothing really going to change much on that. But yeah, definitely, I definitely seen a difference, and there was one thing that I that never used to do, that I picked up on Bob Morton's course, which was I'm paraphrasing here, so if Bob's watching, I'm sorry if I get this, if I murder this, but um, if there is a driving fault while you're on your standards check, talk about it. Yeah. And if there's a serious fault, it's like pull them up, safety critical, blah, blah, blah. And I was very much in the camp before where, this such and such a person's had X amount of lessons. They don't often miss mirror checks. Like, okay, like keep an eye on it, but like, and poor the girl who I took on the standards check that I passed, like I did not give her an inch. Everything that I thought, well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't drive that way. So why would I, to use a bad turn of phrase, let them away with it? Um, so yeah, so every potential, I guess, like driving fault, or speaking about it, and I also gave them the option as well. Missed a couple of mirror checks there. Do we want to go back and look at that, or do you think it was just an oopsie, as we've sometimes said? No, I'm fine. We'll just keep going. Cool. And if it keeps happening, well, okay, right, no. Now we need to talk about it more because it keeps happening. Um, and I didn't go into my first standard check with that mentality. I probably let him away with a lot that I probably shouldn't have. Yeah. And that was probably, I think that was probably a big difference, to be honest. Um, and yeah, that was pretty much it, really. Again, I think that answers your question. Did I see a difference between the lessons? Yeah.
Absolutely. It sounds as well, I mean, you spoke a bit about the first one, but it sounds very much your second one. You kind of had a plan. And I know we shouldn't plan routes and everything else. We deal with what happens on the day. But when you get to know your pupils, I think you've got a rough idea of what can happen. Obviously, there's extremes, there's another person getting in the car, etc. But it sounded like your second one, you're very much kind of had a plan and maybe a few options. If it's going
Yeah.
well, we're going to do
Yeah.
this. If it's not going so well, because these are things that I'm looking at. Obviously, when this goes out, my standards check will be tomorrow, I think. Um, but it does seem like you had a plan, you had options, you had outs,
Yeah.
um, all obviously around the pupil and their needs, but it was planned and I guess structured in a way that allowed for that adapting. We talk about it a lot, adapting down. If there's a fault, we
Yeah,
adapt it that way. But obviously, they
got to
increasing
adapt.
the challenge as well.
Yeah, you've got to adapt up, and like I said, that was a little bit of a theme like throughout the January. I had, you've had Ian on the show here. He sat in on a couple. Um, I think Drew sat in on one as well, and our mate Chris that's up here as well. We all lean on him because he's great, and that was quite a theme. Like, okay, she's got that. What are you going to do next? Why are you why are you why are you hanging around? Let's move it on a little bit. So yeah, so that definitely made me more kind of conscious of adapting up the way as well. Um, and yeah, that was essentially it really. Um, I guess I just didn't do that in the first one. I wonder if I did do that in the first one, if I would have passed. Probably.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because the things that you also went on to change, like spotting the faults and not letting things go, that's been something that's been picked up on me with my training that I've been doing in preparation for this is maybe spotting little things, but not really dealing with it. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's all right, we'll carry on working with this thing and we'll come back to that.
yeah,
Um, whether that works on the grand scheme of things, developing a learner from zero to independent,
mm,
because we're building a picture with that pupil and we know them, maybe we do get complacent. I'm erring on the side that I am getting complacent with my learners. But a standards check is a snapshot. It's a 45 minutes
yeah,
of how you do this job. And if you're missing faults and you're not at
yeah,
least speaking about them and dealing with them, well, then what are you doing in your day-to-day lessons?
yeah. Exactly, exactly. And I remember, on the one that I passed, we came out of the test centre and there was a queue of 4 or 5 learner cars all queuing up to get in for the driving test. And we weren't even out the gates yet. Why do you think their cars are there? And oh, they're probably going for their test. Great. And then next thing we're talking about the next thing, and then it was just boom, 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 all the way through. Like, she must have been tired at the end of it because like neither of us really shut up for the whole 45 minutes, which wasn't a bad thing. And anyway, but then even like say giving them options as well. Um, I remember seeing something. I don't recall what it was, whether it was one of your episodes or Terry's or something else that I came across, and giving them options of okay, right, how did you feel about that last turn, for example? I remember she went kind of wide on a left emerge. How did you feel about that left turn there? I was a bit wide. Okay, why do you think we were a wee bit wide? Oh, I didn't start turning early enough. Okay, that's good. Do you want to go look at that in great detail, or will we carry on with our original plan? I think I'm fine. Okay, cool. I'll keep an eye on you. I'm sure that's what I said. I'll keep an eye on you. And if we do keep doing that, then maybe we should look at it in a bit of detail. Cool, that's fine. And that was really the end of it. But it was that kind of fault recognition. Um, and there was a couple of other things. She kept the clutching around the corner on one. This was at the very, very. Was that at the start or the end? I can't remember now. But yeah, she coasted around the corner at one stage, and we had a good discussion about why that's not beneficial and da da da. And then I think I lost a few marks at the very end. It must have been at the very end of the test because the very last turn before you go back into the test centre, she came around the corner, and we were still planning and talking and stuff like that about what we were going to do and stuff, and commentary driving. And as we came round the corner, there was a car that was parking on our side of the road, and I didn't really deal with it quick enough because we were too busy talking about the coasting a minute ago. She was saying to me like, "Oh, I did really well with that turn there because I didn't coast," and I'm saying, "Oh, what's the car?" So yeah, so I think I probably could have dealt with that a little bit quicker, um, but yeah, it was definitely the kind of watching the pupil more. Maybe that's obviously because if you're not looking at the pupil, you're not going to pick up on these things. So I was definitely conscious of that and paying more attention really, and like I say, giving them options. Do you think that's something we need to dive into more? Um, and and giving them that option as well, you're not really. I'm just kind of figuring this out as I'm talking here. If you are basing their drive on what you think they're capable of before that 45 minutes, then that's not going to give you a very good snapshot, like we said, of your capabilities. Oh well, I know so and so can do left turns, so we don't need to talk about that. Even though she's just made an arse of the past two. I know again that's maybe a very very nice turn of phrase, but yeah, that's probably the way to think about it. Yeah, I guess adapt your lesson to the person that's in the car on the day, rather than okay, yeah, Jimmy knows how to do this, so I didn't need to talk about that. And the examiner's going, yeah, you do.
So maybe we do get a little complacent. I say we, I'm
Oh yeah,
purely
I
speaking
include me
about
in that as well.
myself.
Definitely.
Maybe I'm getting, or I know I have got complacent, and the feedback that I've had in preparation for mine, I guess it's kind of similar to the things that you're saying. Is like we need to be watching the pupil. We need to, if something presents itself, it's got to be spoke about and dealt with. And I think at times there's part of me that thinks I don't want the lesson to just be negative after negative.
Yeah,
It's you've missed a fault here. You've done this, you've done that, you've done the other. And the things that I'm coming back to at the moment is controlling the area so that there's not a list of things to go wrong
yeah,
because you're in a suitable area, and absolutely watching the pupil and making sure that it's pitched at the right level for the pupil at that moment in time.
yeah,
Um, but it is a challenge, isn't it? Because it's 45 minutes. They're just getting a glimpse of a lesson for 45 minutes.
yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's challenging, um, and I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying there as well. If you've got to get the goal and the need right. I know the goals and the needs can be separate, but I honestly think it's maybe not the entire scoring um, of the two that I passed versus the two that I failed, including part three. Sorry, um, but the two that I passed, I nailed what that learner needed at that time. Yeah, the lesson was it was what they needed at the time. Yeah, and the two that I failed, I mean, certainly the first my first part three, my need was way off. I wasn't ready for it at the time. I didn't. I'd be the first person to tell you that I wasn't. I didn't understand the game, so to speak, at that time. Um, and yeah, like I say, the standards check that I didn't pass, it was like I say, the need was. I think it was probably right to be fair. Um, and like I say, the adaptation. They said something along the lines of, "Do you think he really learned much today?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, he did. Could he have learned more? Yeah, yeah, he probably could have." So yeah, that's it's definitely difficult, really challenging.
It's interesting what you said there about on the ones that you passed, you nailed the need and the goals. You got that. And do you think, and I'm kind of reading into your first standards check, you maybe had the need of the pupil and the goal of the pupil at the start when the lesson started,
And I got
but
complacent with the one.
that's where it stayed. Yeah. So you had the need right at the beginning, but
Yeah,
was the need and the goal correct 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in?
yeah, and you're right. These sessions here are therapeutic and good for self reflection. Because I probably didn't even think that until you just said that. Really, you know. So yeah, that's yeah. I think you're absolutely right with
I'm just here selfishly. I've got a standards check next week, the week after.
that. Quite
I'm
right.
like, right,
Well,
so
that's that's
tell me
that's what
some
we're
more
here for.
tips. It's really interesting because the things that you're saying, and I mean, I'm hoping everything goes well. Like when this goes out, it'll be tomorrow. So I'll talk in future tense, whatever. Um, but the things that you've mentioned from your first standards check to developing to your second standards check and the changes you've made, a lot of them I'm seeing kind of in myself and my own lessons and the way I've been going and the changes that I've had to make. Um, and I guess we do, don't we? It's like, oh, we've gone a bit wide there, but it's all right. We're working on this task and you
Yeah.
don't normally do it and it'll
Yeah.
be okay. Um, and then they think it's okay. If we look at it from an
Yeah.
objective point of view, it's like, well, you've just told them that going wide on this bend is okay.
Yeah.
They maybe haven't put two and two together and thought, well, what if there was a large vehicle coming out of there? It's
Yeah.
okay, I went wide. It'll be fine. This time it will.
What if? Yeah. Use that question a lot, you know. And I one of the things I like to do with the commentary as well. So we do the what can you see, how are we going to deal with it, and why are we going to deal with it that way, and then I get the pupil to give me the what ifs. Okay, what can you see happening ahead of you? Okay, give me a what if scenario here. And I've had some absolute belters, some really really funny ones, some that are just totally unrealistic, and then some that are like, yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that. Um, and I'll give you two examples. Um, one was okay, right, give me a what if. I think we were approaching traffic lights, and the people said, "What if the person doesn't press the button but crosses anyway?" And I thought that's a great thought because that absolutely happens. Okay, so how would you deal with that? And it led to a great conversation. And then the other end of the spectrum, somebody went, "What if a dinosaur ran out in front of the car?" And I said, "We'd both be quids in. There's a dinosaur we've just found. It's fine. We didn't need to do this driving instructing anymore." So yeah, again, great laugh, but not quite what we're aiming for.
Really interesting some of the things that you do get back when you start asking questions like that of your
Yeah,
pupils. I mean, there are times where I've had it on lessons where I've had to get realistic about what could happen. And I mean, I'm sure people have it. We have students driving through a wide road, but maybe a built up area. It's a 30-mile-an-hour limit, and we're tootling down at 12, 15 miles an hour. And we can see all the way down the road. And I'm asking the question, I'm like, so why are we driving at this speed? So it's a built up area, it's a housing estate. Well, okay, but we've got good visibility. We can see it's clear. And then they're like, well, what if someone runs out? I'm like, well, can we see any people?
yeah,
Well, no, okay. Well, what if a car reverses off the drive? Okay, but none of them are even across the pavement yet to
yeah,
get to the road.
yeah,
So it's interesting having that thought and then whatever we go and work on to kind of build the confidence around that. But as soon as you start asking questions and finding out what's going on in their brain, it's like,
yeah,
I'd never even considered that. It's
yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
And I think we kind of mentioned this before we hit record. Like, you end up learning loads yourself. um, one thing I just want to kind of mention based on what you were saying there about the built up area and stuff like that. I've in kind of meeting traffic situations like lessons, I've I've often asked the question of okay, right, what's the speed limit on this road? Is there any reason you can't do that speed limit? And that quite often produces quite good answers. Like you say, it's a built up area, there's driveways, there's this, there's that. And it's even better when they say, oh, well, no. Okay, so why are we doing 20 miles an hour on a 30 here then? Let's go. um, and I think that it really helps as well with if you're on a kind of rural road, we're on a national speed limit. What's the speed limit here? You know, what can you see? Is there any reason you can't do 60 here? And usually at the start, people will go, oh, it's just too tight and narrow. I'm not going anywhere near 60 here. And then, you build that confidence up. And then you ask the question again, you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not bad, actually. I can go a little bit fast, is maybe not the right word to use, but appropriate. Um, yeah, that's one of my kind of favourite questions, to be honest with you. Is there any reason you can't do that speed limit?
I like that because that kind of eliminates the need to justify going faster. It's as
Yeah.
if driving at an appropriate speed is the standard. Like, what's stopping you doing that? Oh, well, nothing. Okay. Unless, of course, a dinosaur runs out or whatever else, then maybe we need to ease off a bit or drive faster to get out of there, depending on which one it is.
Brilliant.
So I know you've mentioned a few things that you wanted to talk about, and I think we've gone into some good detail there on the two different standards checks, and it's definitely helped me having my private Zoom session with you this evening in preparation for my standards check.
Well, you did the same for me
Um,
before mine, so it's only fair.
it's not actually going out this is just for me in preparation for mine. Um, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about some of the CPD that you did or were doing, and I know you've mentioned, and I absolutely don't mind shout outs. You've spoke about Bob and Terry Cook over at the Instructor podcast. Was there anything else? Was there any specific courses that you've done or anything that you would recommend for people, and then why you would recommend that?
Okay, so I mean, first and foremost, we'll start with the two that you mentioned there already. I think any instructor that's not a subscriber to, well, first off, Mirror Signal podcast and the Instructor podcast is silly. So much information there, and you might find stuff that you like, you might find stuff that you're not so keen on, but you can, even if you think an episode's rubbish, you can still find stuff that is valuable beyond that. Um, so yeah, so they're the kind of first two. Generally speaking, I have Patreon essentially in the car, listening to that basically all day, every day, repeating episodes, all that kind of stuff. And then beyond that, I did the client-centered learning with Bob, and I think Bob's great. He's a fun character. He comes across like bouncy and all this kind of stuff, and he's great, and his course is the exact same really, and he's definitely. I mean, I've never met Bob, but I would imagine he'd be the kind of person when you do meet him, you'd be like, you make it sound so easy. Yeah. So yeah, those were the two like kind of main things that I did, and then when me and Drew went, like Drew, who you've had on here, we went to the expo, met yourself in person, and a lot of the speakers and stuff like that were there were really good as well. Ray Seagrave was one of them. At his talk at the expo, I made the mistake of not going straight to his stall and buying the book. But I'll go see other stuff first and then go back to his stall and buy it. And then by the time I did, it was gone. So I had to pay full price on Amazon. It's fine. Happy to support him. Happy to support him anyway. So yeah, his book's great. Do you mind if I show it?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, carry on. It might
Um,
blur it out.
yeah, it's blurred
You
out.
have to get it.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Driving Instructor's Ultimate Guide to Coaching Questions.
There we go.
And there we go. And
Oh, we can
it's
see
really
it
good.
there.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And he said a few things, like we sat and chatted to him at the expo, and he said a lot of things that really kind of resonated with me. He said, again, paraphrasing, he said something along the lines of, the pupils who, have the bad attitude, they think it's cool to go fast, all this kind of stuff, and dangerous on the road, and, think it's cool. These are the ones you need to get through to. And these aren't the ones you should be like, oh, he's too much work, or he's attitude's bad. These are the ones that you should be putting the effort in to make changes. Yeah. And that kind of really resonated with me. I thought that's a great way to look at it. And back to the CPD. What else to do? I did a course on ADHD with Dr. Julian Malkin. Great. I fully plan on booking more hours with her. It's kind of like a one-to-one Zoom session that she has. She's great, and all the stuff that we kind of went into. It was specific on ADHD because I had a learner with it who I was struggling to help, and she blew my mind really, and I bet she's only really scratched the surface. So yeah, I will be going back to doing more hours with her, finances depending, and yeah, it's what else did I do? On top of that, obviously having friends of mine sitting in on the lessons, I think that's great CPD. And really, I think you could probably get people who would be nice. Oh yeah, that was good. But no, don't pull any punches. If it's if it's terrible, tell me it's terrible because that's what I need to get better at. You're not helping anybody by sugarcoating it. And then again on top of that was really obviously doing all that and taking the time to reflect upon it and reflect upon my lessons. I I would sit and record voice notes just on WhatsApp. You can send messages to yourself. Pupil gets out of the car. I would drive around the corner just so I wasn't sitting outside their house for 10 minutes like a strange person. Yeah, I would drive around the corner, press record, and just talk. Such and such did well today. I I think I could have dealt with this situation earlier. I I feel really good because she asked a great question and then I followed it up. But whatever, doesn't matter what it is. But I did that as, like, while it was really really fresh in my memory. Um, like, not do four lessons and then go home at the end of the day and think about it, and like, straight from the oven, so to speak. And that really helped as well. That really really helped. And then what I would do on the Mondays when I was off is I would go back and I would press play and listen to all these voice notes and see if I could, like, pick a theme. And it can be quite uncomfortable listening to your own voice almost if you're not used to it. Um, and yeah, see if I can notice these themes. Uh, and I mean, I can't. Nothing really springs to mind at the moment, but there was definitely times where I went, right, okay, that's two, three lessons in a row with this pupil where this has happened. Okay, maybe pay more attention here, or whatever. Again, it was just a good tool to to reflect. And you're gonna forget stuff as well. I've currently got about 30 pupils, and if I didn't write stuff down, I wouldn't remember what they were doing. I wouldn't remember what we did last week, and that's also no good value for money for them. So yeah, back to the question of CPD. I think that covers everything I did. And you asked for what I would recommend. Essentially all of it. A bit of a cop out answer there, but yeah, yeah, it's all great, and it's all worthwhile. Is the word to use, I would say. Um, yeah, I think that answers everything. Yeah, I think that answers everything.
It certainly does from the questions that I've posed. I guess the next one from me would be, where are you going next? What's your plans for the future with this? Now the standards check's done and passed and you've got your grade A. What's next?
Um, I really want to make a conscious effort to not get complacent again. Um, so so yeah, so it'll be a case of continuing the CPD, continue listening to the podcasts, and essentially getting better. I say this to a lot of the pupils and stuff like that as well. The perfect driver doesn't exist. Or the perfect driver hasn't been born yet. Um, I get. I mean, could you say the same? The perfect driving instructor hasn't been born yet. We're not going to. You're never going to be perfect. And if you're always aiming to just get better, so yeah, so keep going with the CPD is essentially the answer to that question. And then the next kind of training course thing that I've got is a fleet training with Drive Tech. I've got that in April. Really looking forward to that. It's a part one, two, and three again, because apparently I like doing this to myself. Uh, and yeah, I've already passed the part one. It's like a theory test on Zoom, and that was fine. That was all based on roadcraft. the police driver's handbook. Don't know if I've got that knocking about as well. Um, so yeah, so that was good. And yeah, just kind of looking forward to that. Some advanced driving and then dealing with a different type of client because, well, again, I'm not well versed on the fleet world in any way, shape, or form. So it'll be good to learn that and deal with full license holders as it would be. And again, it's a different experience, you know. Um, so yeah, that's the next step, next thing in line.
Keeping challenging yourself.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah,
I love it. So, what I've got now, if we could, I've got some questions from our listeners. Do you mind if we go through some of those?
yeah, go for it.
So, before we get on to listeners' questions, here is your discount code from our sponsors, Knowledgeably Instructor Training. And the discount code is MSP10, and that will get you 10% off their client centered learning part 3 and standards check award winning in person workshop. So that is code MSP10. The first question is from Penny. Hi, Penny. Um, what are your key tips for new trainees?
Key tips for new trainees. Um, I feel like I'm always going to repeat myself from the first episode. Don't try and do it by yourself. Is the way I would put it. Have people sitting in the back of your lessons, sit in the back of other people's lessons. If you don't have that community around you, almost kind of create one. It's not easy to do that, but yeah, I would definitely say don't do it on your own. Get feedback from, obviously most people will have a trainer to kind of give them feedback and stuff like that. But on top of that, get other people's opinions, people that are going through the same thing as you, and you kind of, while you are doing your, we had a great group. Well, we have a great group. It was like 4 or 5 of us who were all on our trainee licenses at the same time, and we'd meet up for coffees and all this kind of stuff, and it was great, and that group chat's still active. If you're having issues, goes in there, have a good laugh and that as well. So yeah, so back to the answer: don't try to do it by yourself. Get more people sitting in on your lessons, sitting on others, stuff like that.
Excellent advice there. There's more from Penny yet. Is the process of becoming a driving instructor worthwhile?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that, straight to the point.
Yeah, I love it. I I think that the best thing I like about it is when you see those light bulb moments. You're trying to help somebody and then something clicks. Quite often it's you might not even know what clicks, but something clicks. Um, and as being a driving instructor's got the kind of job satisfaction that I've never had up until this point. So yeah, quite a short and sweet answer there. I suppose yes is the answer to that question.
Great answer. And last one from Penny. What would you say to someone just thinking about starting their journey towards becoming a driving instructor?
Do your homework. I know that's probably quite a generic answer. But yeah, have a Google of the schools, have a Google of the local schools. If you can meet, if you're kind of ready to pull the trigger on one, and you have a chance to kind of meet who's going to be doing the majority of the training, bite their hand off for that. Um, and yeah. I mean, essentially, do your homework. Some of the big schools online get quite a bad reputation, and I'm with one of them, and I've had nothing but good experiences so far. Touch wood. So yeah, do your homework. If one of the big schools is right for you, then don't be put off. Just do your homework first and read the contract. That's one thing. That's good advice. You'll see quite a lot of that on some of the Facebook groups and stuff like that. Somebody will say, how, what's the term in the contract or blah blah blah, and no point in asking on Facebook. Go and read the contract. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I'd like to just add on that when you said about read the contract. I'm seeing again a lot more people popping up at the minute that are in a contract and they are trying to get out of a contract. And I'm not here to offer legal advice. And those people that are in that
Yeah,
situation, that's you've got to deal with that. However, but what I would say to anyone that's not yet in a contract, like you've just mentioned there, like read it, all of it, and
understand.
potentially get legal advice before
Yeah,
you go and sign something that's signing you in for 2 or 3 years.
yeah,
You get legal advice.
yeah. And I mean that's that. I agree with that entirely. I'd probably say that's kind of one step further than I went. I didn't get any legal advice on it. Um, I was very much of the so my franchise contract is 2 years. Um, and I thought, really, in the grand scheme of things, 2 years isn't that long a time. I guess it's a really long length of time if you're tied to that contract and you're not making any money. But um, everything goes well. And as far as I'm aware, don't quote me on this, but I've seen some people saying if you fail your like third attempt at part three, you're still tied to the contract. And I got that in writing from my company. Like, is this the case? And no, no, it's not. Like, if you've not passed, you've obviously not met you've not met the terms in which the contract would be grounded upon anyway, i.e., qualifying to become an ADI. So yeah, my understanding was that if that happens, they then say, okay, right, we'll come get the car, and good luck in your next adventure. um, but yeah, like you say, read the contract, and if you've got questions, ask them because if they then answer, you've then got it in writing. Well, you say this. If there is any kind of if it does come to any kind of legal dispute beyond that, yeah. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody because it's stressful enough trying to pass the part three in the first place.
Yeah. I guess, like what you said as well, come in with you didn't say it, but coming in with your eyes open, like you knew it was a 2 year contract,
Yeah,
you're building a career. What's 2 years? Well, you build and get to where you want to get. We can talk about this, and there are episodes where we have spoke more in depth about contracts and what you should look for as a PDI. But absolutely know what you're getting into, with who, for how long,
yeah,
and if you're unsure, ask before you sign. Don't sign and then ask.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's good advice for anything, I suppose. So they have to be driving instruction, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the challenge is I don't know, it's why I started the show. There's not a huge amount of information out there, open source. You go on Google, as most people do, and it's similar companies or it's paid advertisement in your local area.
Yeah,
And if you don't know anything, you go with what appears to be a reputable brand. And sometimes that really works and it pays off and it suits what you need. Other times, maybe it's not. So I'm not going to delve anymore.
yeah.
If you're
I,
not sure what to do,
I
go
would,
on, I'll let you finish up.
I would think one thing I would say about that is, you know, certainly with the bigger companies. Again, I'm not mentioning names. I am with one of the big companies at the moment. Um, where if you like sign up to an email, get a call back about becoming a driving instructor, whatever. Understand that the person on the phone is a salesman. He's not a driving instructor. Yeah, so do with that what information you will. Do with that information what you will. Um, and yeah, I mean, it kind of ties back into the first question there. If you have a chance to meet the person who's going to be doing the training before you sign on a dotted line, bite their hand off for that. But buy them a coffee and nip their ear for an hour or something. Yeah, yeah, do it. Um, because that's the person you're going to be working with probably more than anybody else. Uh, and yeah, yeah, like I say, the person who phones you back for one of these companies is a salesman. He's not a driving instructor.
I'm not sure how we got here, and I've lost Penny's questions now because I've moved on to a new page. Penny, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
just on a last one about that, like if you don't know where to turn or who to talk to, I'm sure most of the guests that have been on my show will be happy if you reach out if they happen to be in a local area. I'm also happy to answer questions. So if you're wanting to become a driving instructor, don't know where to turn, then I'm more than happy to have a chat with anyone that's listening to this and just offer my opinion or direction to someone that's local to you to maybe offer you that guidance. But there we go. I'm going to move on to the next question now. Otherwise, this is a new episode on how to become a driving instructor. Right. How different? Sorry. So we've got Tarek. How different did you find your standards check to your part three? I.e., did you approach it differently because you have more experience?
I mean, yeah, I did, and I got complacent. That's why I failed the first one. Um, yeah, in theory, you shouldn't really approach it any different. The text is the same, um, and there was maybe a little bit of, I mean, dare I say, arrogance. I've been doing this for more than a year now, or coming up a year now, and yeah, I think I've got this. Should be fine. And I do think I was still at a decent standard. I just didn't deliver on the day. But yeah, I think I put a lot more effort in the second time with both my second part three and my second standards check. That's probably the big difference.
Think that that question was answered throughout the episode as
I
well, but
think so.
I'd
Yeah.
like to follow them up and we can get specific because it's the same now with Carl. We've answered this in the episode, but I guess see if we can be a bit more specific with this one. We'll see. My question would be, what was your immediate thoughts and feelings when your standards check came through? How did you deal with your feelings about the test to get through it successfully?
Dread is the answer to the first question. Uh, yeah, raging, ready to throw my phone at the wall. Um, yeah, I was a bit like, I was very much, I've just passed. Why am I getting this? But no, it's part of the job. Suck it up and deal with it, essentially. um, I guess I dealt with my feelings. Hmm. Again, I'm going to kind of go between the two standards checks more than anything else. I just put more work in. I knew I needed to get better, and yeah, again, I'm not sure if that quite answers the question, but um, yeah, I was filled with dread when the email came through, and then it was very much right. Let's get to work, and then let's get harder at work after I failed the first one.
That answers it, and this episode answers that question as well.
Yeah.
I maybe should have been more specific with the post that I put out, but I figured we'd leave out the first standards check and the second standards check as part of the post that went out on social media. But there we have it. We've spoke about well quite a lot really, and it's been quite insightful for me in preparation for my standards check.
Good.
So thank you very much for the private Zoom session for
How,
me
how,
this evening.
how are you feeling about that standards check? Because I think that might this little section might be good to look back on after your standards check.
Um, right now, I'm feeling a little. I'm gonna analyze my own feelings. I don't do this too much apart from my Friday reflections. Go check them out. But even then, that's just me talking. Um, I'm almost doubting my decision to get one because for where I want to go, I kind of need a grade A, really. My plan is to get a grade A and look towards audit when that comes back open again, whatever that looks like. Um, so everything that I'm doing is wanting to get that grade A. That's my focus and my attention. And I'm almost thinking now, is it a stupid idea? Because obviously I asked for the standards check like an idiot. Um, And I got the DVSA are never efficient at anything, but I emailed on, I think it was the Wednesday, and I had a date on the Thursday. It might have been the Tuesday, got a date on the Wednesday, and got the confirmation email on the Thursday. So yeah, I requested one and had a date within a week. And I'm like, why can't you be this efficient for my learners? I didn't want this. So yeah, I got what I wanted. But right now I'm feeling the training that I've been doing, there are improvements that I need to make. And this episode that we've done, I think complacency has come in very much so. There's been a mistake at the start of the lesson, but it's not really fit in with the goal that we was going to work on. So it's almost been, we'll pop that to one side. Let's go and do the goal. And in all fairness, both times over the last 2 weeks that come up, it's come back to bite me in the arse because the fault that we've kind of spoke about, and yeah, we'll deal with that later, has become a bigger fault later down the line, and now I've had to change everything.
Yeah.
So that complacency, um, I'm feeling reasonably confident, but I need everything now to just fall into place next week. Yeah, as we're filming, next week is my last week. I've got a week of work before the standards check, and I'm back to, for that last week, just focusing on the competencies. If
Yeah.
anyone that's followed my reflective logs, you'll know that I've kind of gone from
Yeah.
competencies to instructor skills to more skills.
Yeah.
And now I'm very much going back to, right, competencies. We've got to be showing them all at all times.
Can
So that's
I,
where I'm at next week.
quick question to squeeze in. Do you set yourself goals throughout your lessons or throughout your day? Because you can maybe do this over several lessons. So I,
I,
just to
yeah,
give you
go
a
on.
little example, sorry, Colin. I at one stage was saying, right, okay, um, I am going to focus on, did the trainer identify the people's learning goals and needs? And that right there is what I'm going to focus on. And then as we progressed, I would go through all 17, and then I would go back to the start. And then maybe I would do the first two. I forget what the second one is there.
Ah,
And then I would go through them all again, like in pairs, and then I would do section by section. And while that worked, I did feel that it wasn't, if you're focusing on the competencies, sometimes I mean, especially if you're focusing on, say, a risk management competency, you're then not focusing on questioning techniques and all that kind of stuff. So while I was doing that, I kind of started giving myself more kind of goals to add in. And the one that I found was my favourite was ask another question. I asked that one a lot. I realise I've asked you a question and then just started talking. Sorry. But yeah, I did that a lot. I just ask another question. Don't take it like, what happened there, blah blah blah. This happened. Okay, cool. Move on to the next thing. Like I always set myself a goal to ask another question on top of that. So yeah, back to me asking you a question. Do you do that? Do you add in goals for yourself throughout your day or throughout your sessions?
yes.
Yep.
So my goals were very much instructor skills. So it was watching the student, and I don't know why I've moved away from it, but it was picking up on the small things and fixing them. I know I mentioned that it was probably week 3 or week 4 of my reflection that I really need to be on this. And it's kind of slipped again. Um, so my goal going forward tomorrow and into next week, as we're filming on a Thursday, just so listeners know, and I've got standards check is probably in about 10 days, 11 days. There you go. It doesn't matter. It'll be tomorrow when this goes out. Um, so going forward, I had Nick in watching my lesson yesterday, I think it was. And the things that came out there, the things that I'm now going to be going working on off the top of my head is like identifying goals and needs. And that's not at the start of a brief, but as the lesson's evolving, because there was a mistake that happened early on and it was brushed to one side until it caused me issues later down the line. So identifying goals and needs. Training area, was the training area suitable? And the way I'm seeing that at the minute is it needs to be suitable to work on their goals, but it's also I need to not allow anything else to affect the lesson or at least minimize it as much as I can.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the training area being suitable for their learning goals and needs, but it's also about the training area minimizing the risk of
Yeah.
something else coming in
Yeah, absolutely.
that I then have to deal with on the standards check. So goals and needs, training area, um, feedback. So if something does go wrong, dealing with it. And there are two others. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm linking now. What I'm going working on next week is the competencies that are kind of linked together. So if I'm
Yeah.
falling short in one area, it's going to cascade to
Yeah.
probably six other competencies. So very similar feedback from Tom when I done an assessment with him, similar with Nick when I done an assessment with him. So that's my focus now next week. Keep it simple, focus on the pupil, and be specific with the training area. I think it's the simplest way I can put this complicated mess that's spinning in my head at the minute. I think that's the simplest way I can put what I need to do.
Yeah. That sounds good, mate. And I think the training area, what you were saying about that there, is it's a lot more important than because I used to think, right, okay, was the training area suitable? Okay, we're working. I'm going to simplify this down way too much, but we're working on roundabouts. There has to be roundabouts on it. And it's very much. I always kind of took that as well. One, what are you putting the pupil into an unsafe environment, i.e., they're not capable of doing what you're asking them to do. Two, it needs to be challenging enough. Because if it's too easy, then again they're not really learning it. Learn that between my first and my second standard check. And three, knowing your area as well. Um, the thought of going and do a standards check or a part three or something like that in an area other than Dundee terrifies me. I know some of the local areas not too bad, but not well enough to teaching them. That's maybe not fair. I think I probably managed to teaching them, but you know, having the knowledge of okay, this maybe this isn't working, and we need to step things back. Okay, what do we step it back to? And like that there ties in with adapting the lesson plan and all that kind of stuff as well. Um, so yeah, again, I've went off on a tangent there, but yeah, that's one that I think you could quite easily, if you get that wrong, like you say, it cascades to other competencies as well. Because if the training area is not right, they might not learn anything. That might not be safe enough. It might not suit their goals and needs. There's five straight away that you've lost points on. So yeah,
I had that looking back now on my part three. I passed it. I got a reasonable score on my part three, but we was doing, I can't remember. I think it was mirror checks and we were using roundabouts to achieve that. But much like you said, we'd got it. So I was taking my pupil to like different roundabouts to do it independently. And one of the loops, I needed to go straight ahead at a roundabout and then I could do a loop of lefts and back to the roundabout where we went straight ahead. And then we could have gone right and back to the test center. But instead of going straight ahead and doing a loop of left turns, where one of the left turns is downhill, so you come off the roundabout and you're going down a hill left. I went left at the roundabout earlier. So we're now going the opposite way around this loop. And I'm coming up to a roundabout that's now a right turn because going left would have been out of the area that I wanted to be in. So I had to do a right turn. And the approach to the roundabout's uphill. And I realized as soon as we went left on the roundabout, in my head, I'm like, oh shit. what have I done? Because now I'm like, we're in, they're independent. He's probably going to be all right on this roundabout. But if he's not, it's on a hill. And
Yeah,
all of that just from one wrong direction, go left instead of straight.
so yeah,
And this isn't to scare people, but it was just, yeah, we'll go this way. We'll make sure you've got it on your own on different roundabouts. And lo and behold, he stalled on the hill. Oh,
was he?
yeah, he stalled. There's the new need. So we just done a lap, worked on it. Um, and he got it. It was fine. And yeah, but I just took one wrong turn. So yeah, lesson
It's
to
easy done as
learn.
well because it could
Yeah,
be. I mean, even taking that wrong turn, so to speak, that could be you saying, "Okay, go this way," or that could be, I've had instances. Okay, we're going to go straight ahead at the roundabout, second exit, and people went phew, taking the first exit, and oh shit, right, okay, but like we now need to get back to where we were, and you kind of have to be, like I said, you have to know the area to be able to then get back to either where you need to be or deal with the situation that's coming up. Um, and I guess I always kind of one thing that I kind of link, but I say this to all my peoples now as well. This is something I learned from Julia Malkin. Was if I will never ask you to do something that I don't think you're capable of. If we do find ourselves in that situation, I will help you, and if it all goes to pot, I'll do it for you. Um, and yeah, like I say, if you like I say, if you do find you've actually taken a wrong turn or something, you need to know the area to be able to get back to either what you were doing or all right, well this one will be fine instead. Let's go this way. So yeah, challenging.
that's very much my focus next week. My last week is exactly that. Put the pupils in the optimal area, training area for their goals and needs. And my plan next week is very much minimize any interference that we could potentially have as much as I can. Um, and yeah, pick up every little thing that's happening, not necessarily in a negative way, but like just be on it
Yeah,
and not brush it under the carpet, or at least give them an option. This hasn't gone to plan. Do we need to kind of put a pin in it and come back, or would you like to fix that before we move on?
yeah.
I have plans, and I've just realized amongst all of this, when this goes out, anyone that watches it as it goes out now knows what day my standards check is.
There's going to be an edit in there somewhere, isn't there? Just bleep it
Bro,
out.
yeah, we blur and beat that bit. Do you know, I'm on the reflective logs. I've just decided so many people kind of fear the standards check as well. I'm a bit scared, don't get me wrong, but hopefully if these episodes and the short reflective logs that I'm doing on a Friday can just, I don't know, give people some kind of guidance or direction,
Yeah.
or because people tend to go in it on their own, don't they? It can be quite, what's the word? Isolating. So I've got a standards check, I've got to go and do it. And I'm feeling that, and I film most nights.
I think in kind of response to that as well is I like between my first and my second one, you kind of own it. If it goes well or not, like that's what happened, and you've got to kind of deal with it. And I made a much better effort to get people sitting in on mine before the second one, and it's uncomfortable. I don't love it. Having somebody in the back, say to all the peoples that agree to do this, they're here to watch me. They're not here to watch you. They're not judging your driving or judging anything about you. Like, thank you for doing this. And you know, quite often you'll be sitting there and somebody's putting the pen and the pad out, and you're like, oh, what are they writing? What are they saying? But I, in much the same way I do with my learners, and when they're preparing for their test, you kind of you kind of put the stressors on a little bit. You make it more challenging for them, and I think that would kind of achieve that. or certainly did for me anyway. Um, so yeah, that's it's put yourself in the situation. You know, so you've done that. You've had Tom and a couple others. What would you say? Somebody called Nick.
Yeah,
Sitting at the back of your lessons and giving you feedback. Like, you know, you might have the worst lesson ever while they're doing that, but it's better that you have the worst lesson ever while somebody else is observing you rather than an examiner on one of your attempts, either at the part three or the standards check. So yeah, yeah, lean into the feedback, good or good or bad.
it's the way I'm seeing it, and I'm linking it with my sport as well in the build up to a competition. Um, training's never good. There's always somewhere to improve. There's always something to tweak, but you need that if you want that development. Like we're never a finished product. Yeah, you mentioned it that we're never a perfect driving instructor. Um, and it took me a minute to realize that when I was getting some feedback. So there are areas that I can improve, and I need to go and up my game, and
Yeah.
it's put me in a good place. It's given me some focus for the last week of training.
Yeah.
And if the podcast disappears after this episode, by the way, it didn't go to plan, and I'll be back at some point in the future.
Mirror Signal podcast, the finale.
This could be the last episode that goes out.
Oh, nah, don't be silly. Don't do that.
Nah, I'll have another one filmed before the standards check. It'll be the second to last. Now, I'm looking forward to it. It's a good challenge. It's made me up my game. It's made me improve as a driving instructor. I've done so much CPD. Whatever, I'm almost at the point now. Whatever happens on the standards check, I mean, don't get me wrong. I want a grade A. I want a good score. But whatever happens, I'm in a better place now than I was 8 weeks ago, which means my students are getting
Yeah.
a better lesson than they was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. I'm going for a good score, but the development has been massive. I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it. So it's good. We've gone off on a tangent there, I think, have we? Or is it still standards check umbrella? We're still talking about.
Yeah, I think you know, some of the best bits come in the tangents, don't they? So
They do. It's been an interesting one, and you managed to spin it around on me and get some questions in. So I like it. Well done.
I need to up
Um,
my interviewing skills.
do you have any final points?
I don't think so. I think we started this kind of section with some of the questions. Was there any more?
No, I will double check because sometimes they come in late. Um, that was it, unless anyone else has jumped in late. And I've posted in two different places, so I have to lose them. I don't have to lose them, I have to find them. That was it on the questions.
Well, thanks everybody that posted one.
Um, yeah, that's us for questions. And obviously, if anyone has any more, leave them in the comments and
Yeah,
I'll either answer as best as I can or I'll pass them on to Sean or
yeah.
something. But you can reach out. You're in the group anyway, aren't you? The Facebook group, if anyone
Yes, I'm
wants
in
to
the
kind of reach
yeah,
out or anything.
yeah. I mean, I guess I could do a bit of a plug for my Facebook page itself. I'll send you the link for that. Kind of rebranded after I passed my part three as Sean O's driving school. So, yeah, yeah. Like I say, happy to help.
I will get that put in the description, and when the post goes out, we'll give it a tag. But yeah, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Just
It's
thank you.
been great to catch up. Nice to discuss the standards checks, and but it's helped me personally, obviously where I'm at the minute as well. So selfishly, thank you very much for taking the time and coming on.
It's only fair because you helped me. I think it was the night before my last standards check. So, yeah, the feeling's mutual.
We had a good chat that night, and there we go. Right. Before we head on any more tangents, obviously you're welcome back at any point. So depending on where you go with your next venture and the fleet and everything else. But thank you very much. I've appreciated the chat.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our guest today, Sean, and thank you to our sponsors, Knowledgeably Instructor Training. You can find their award-winning content at www.adikit.co.uk. I would also like to mention Dr. Julia Malkin and the subscription that Julia has. You can find that on Patreon. Just search for Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin MBE. And this subscription gives you access to over 60 videos to help you with your neurodiverse learners in the car, whether that's ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, or anything else that you might come across in the car. So make sure you check that out. You can find it on Facebook or you can find the membership on Patreon. Thank you.